Married for 5 years, my husband the Duke finally brought back news of his white moonlight from the frontier, her orphan child. He shoved the child at me, his gaze ice cold and cutting. Raise it or be divorced. Pick one. I chose the latter without hesitation. He thought I was weak and easy to bully, that I couldn't survive without him, convinced I wouldn't last 3 days before crawling back to beg him. What he got instead was the sight of the Duke's manor emptied out. The steward presented the account books. My lord Duke, the lady said everything in the manor was her dowry. And she took it all? He looked at the empty mansion and collapsed to the floor. He came back with a child. That child's features somewhat resembled another woman. I knew that woman, Peiyanjo's white moonlight, who had occupied his heart for 5 years. Shuji-e, she is dead. Peiyanjo spoke, his voice like the howling north wind outside. He pushed the child forward. The child couldn't stand steady, stumbled, and looked at me timidly. This is her child, Peiyanjo said, and mine. I looked at him without saying anything. Somewhere in my heart felt like it was being stabbed hard by an ice pick. It didn't hurt, just numb. It has been 5 years. I thought my heart had long been ground into a stone. Turns out it wasn't. The stone was smashed open, and inside was still flesh and blood. The entire Shu family was convicted of crimes, and she risked her life to save this child. Peiyanjo's tone carried an unquestionable command. Starting today, he will be raised under your name. The child was very thin and small, wearing ill-fitting clothes, but his eyes were bright, staring straight at me. I didn't look at the child, I only looked at Peiyanjo. What if I'm unwilling? I asked. He seemed to smile. That smile didn't reach his eyes, full of mockery. Shen Qinging, what right do you have to be unwilling? You've been married into the Duke's manor for 5 years with no offspring. That I haven't divorced you on these grounds is already out of consideration for the Shen family's face. Now, giving you a chance to be the legitimate mother, you should be grateful. Every word he spoke was like a poison-laced needle. My hands resting on my knees slowly tightened, my nails dug into my palms. It hurt a lot. This pain kept me clear-headed. So I have no choice, I said. There is. Peiyanjo's chin lifted slightly, looking at me with a condescending gaze. Raise it or be divorced. You choose one. He finished speaking. The study was very quiet. Only the child's shallow breathing could be heard. He looked at me with certainty, waiting for me to cry bitterly, waiting for me to beg humbly, waiting for me to ultimately swallow all grievances for the sake of the title, Duke's wife. Just like every other time in the past 5 years, I looked at him and smiled a little. I choose the latter. The expression on Peiyanjo's face froze. He probably thought he'd heard wrong. What did you say? I said I choose to divorce. I spoke clearly. You write the documents, or I'll write them. Property division is simple, my dowry. I'll take it all with me. In this estate, there doesn't seem to be anything that belongs to you, Peiyanjo. His complexion changed from shock to ashen. Shen Qingning, have you gone mad? Do you even know what you're saying? Without me, what are you worth? A woman cast aside by her husband's family, do you think the Shen family will still acknowledge you? He stepped forward, his towering figure carried an oppressive presence. I'll give you one last chance, take back your words. I can pretend nothing happened. I stood up, meeting his eyes at the same level. Peiyanjo, you've got one thing wrong. It is not you casting me aside, it is me no longer wanting you. Having said that, I no longer looked at him. I walked to the door and pulled it open. Outside the door stood my dowry head steward, Uncle Fu. He had been with me since I was 13. He was the person I trusted most. Uncle Fu, I spoke. Miss, this old servant is here. Wake up all our people. Take inventory of the dowry. Not a single item can be missing. Starting from tomorrow morning, we're moving. Uncle Fu froze for a moment, then nodded emphatically. Yes, miss? I turned around and looked at Peiyanjo in the study, whose expression was beyond description. He probably thought I was just saying things in anger, that I was bluffing. The contempt and disdain in his eyes were practically overflowing. Good, very good, Shen Qinging, you've got guts. I'd like to see how you move out tomorrow. Do you think the gates of the Duke's manor are yours to come and go as you please? He didn't believe it. He didn't believe I would dare. Even less did he believe I could. He thought I was just using this ridiculous method to get his attention to make him compromise. I couldn't be bothered to argue with him anymore. The facts would give him the best answer. I left with Butler Fu, walking out of this courtyard that had suffocated me for 5 years. Peiyanjo's furious roar came from behind me. Within 3 days, you'll definitely come back crying and begging me. I didn't look back. Beg him? He would soon find out who was the one who should be begging for mercy. Before dawn broke, the Duke's manor was already in full motion. It wasn't the usual sounds of servants sweeping and cleaning the courtyard. It was a kind of thunderous movement with strict discipline and orderly precision. My people, the dowry servants and guards, brought by Uncle Fu 120 people in total. They wore uniform short brown jackets, moved swiftly, and were taciturn. Uncle Fu held a thick ledger in his hands. That was the complete record of my dowry, from the day I married in. This ledger has been locked in my private storage. Pei Yanzhou didn't even know of its existence. Front courtyard, main gate plaque, Zhenshan He, rosewood material, masterpiece from the previous dynasty, dowry item number AE dismantle. Uncle Fu's voice wasn't loud, but it was powerful. Several sturdy servants immediately set up ladders and carefully began dismantling the plaque that represented the Duke's manor's dignity. Pair of guardian stone lions at the entrance, carved from whole pieces of Hetian jade. Dowry item number AR, pry them up. The guards took out tools they had prepared long ago and began prying at the base of the stone lions. All the servants in the manor were scared silly. They gathered in the distance, whispering to each other, their faces full of terror and disbelief. Butler Peian came stumbling over. He was Pei Yanzhou's houseborn servant with an arrogant expression on his face. Are you rebelling? Madam, what are you trying to do? He shouted at me. I sat in the corridor, leisurely sipping my tea. Uncle Fu turned around and blocked his way. Butler Pei, the young lady, is merely retrieving her own belongings. How dare you? Everything in the mansion belongs to the Duke. When did it become Madam's property? Pei, and was so angry he stamped his feet. Uncle Fu let out a cold laugh. He opened the ledger in his hands. Steward Pei, please listen carefully. The Duke's mansion currently occupies 68 mu of land. The deed is here. It was a dowry gift from Master Shen to the young lady back then, in the mansion. The main courtyard, the east and west side courtyards, the back garden, and the servants' quarters total 213 rooms. The property deeds are here. Also part of the dowry, every single stone slab you're standing on, every single tree planted in the courtyards. All were brought over by our young lady. It is all recorded clearly in the ledger. Uncle Fu held the ledger forward. Do you want me to read it out loud for you? Pei'an's face turned pale, his lips trembled, unable to utter a single word. All the expenses and expenditures in the mansion. Which one of them didn't come from my dowry accounts? That Duke Pei Yanzhou's official salary wasn't even enough to buy himself a decent set of official robes. This matter, which of the old-timers in the mansion didn't know it in their hearts. It is just that no one dared to say it out loud. They all thought that since I married Pei Yanzhou, what was mine naturally became Pei Yanzhou's too. They were wrong. What is mine will always be mine alone. Wait, sisters. I'm totally stunned. This dowry list is absolutely insane. The entire Duke's manor, from the land to the houses, from the plaques to the stone lions. All of it belongs to the female lead. For 5 years, Pei Yanzhou wasn't even living in his own home. He was living in his wife's rental property. And the kicker is he dared to look down on his wife and forced her to raise his mistress's son. I'm seriously impressed by this operation. Now look what happened. The landlord isn't renting anymore. She is taking the house and all the furniture with her, leaving you an empty shell to play with. TSK. This is what you call I supported you for 5 years. You give me back an empty husk. I bet Pei Yanzhou's guts are turning green with regret right now, huh? But regret is useless. Who told you to court death yourself? I just want to ask, is it too late to kneel and beg for forgiveness now? The answer is too late. Pei Yanzhou was probably so angry last night that he stayed in the outer courtyard. Or maybe he went to find a place to settle his precious son. He is not here. This gave me great convenience. Continue. I put down my teacup and said indifferently, the entire Duke's manor was like a huge model being precisely disassembled. The tables and chairs in the main hall were made of golden silk Nanmu wood. Take them away. The antiques on the curio shelves were official kiln pieces from the previous dynasty. Pack them up. The silks and satins in the storeroom were tribute goods from Jiangnan Weaving Bureau. Empty it out. Even the silver bone charcoal used for cooking in the kitchen was shipped in by me from the south, not a single piece left behind. The servants initially wanted to stop us, but seeing the fierce and menacing look of my people, None of them dared to step forward. They could only watch helplessly. Watch as this home they had lived in for many years was emptied bit by bit. Watch as the wealth and glory they thought belonged to the Duke was sealed up and loaded onto carriages. Cart after cart, they stretched from the main gate of the Duke's mansion all the way to the end of the street. Many people in the capital city were alarmed. They gathered in the distance, pointing and gossiping. They didn't know what had happened. They only saw that the once glorious Jinan Duke's mansion was being dismantled. Among my people, there were a few spies planted by Pei Yanzhou. I had always known at this moment they were panicking and running out to report. I didn't stop them. I wanted Pei Yanzhou to know, to let him come back and see for himself, see what is left of the Duke's mansion he was so proud of without my dowry. By afternoon, the mansion was already more than half empty. Only some worthless items remained, or things that simply couldn't be moved. Uncle Fu came over, miss. The inventory is almost complete. It is just, he seemed somewhat hesitant to speak. In the stable in the backyard, that Fergana horse was a tribute from the western regions to His Majesty, and His Majesty bestowed it upon the Duke. That doesn't count as dowry. I nodded, then leave it behind. What else? There is also the calligraphy and paintings the Duke wrote himself in his study, as well as the things his colleagues gave him. Leave those behind too. I stood up. I only want my own things. What doesn't belong to me? I won't touch a single cent of it. I want him to see clearly what exactly is his in this household. Uncle Fu understood. Yes, miss. At dusk, the last carriage drove out of the Duke's mansion. I stood in the courtyard. In the empty courtyard, even the echoes became clear. The house was still the same house, but inside there was nothing left. Only bare walls remained, and a mess all over the floor, like a skeleton picked clean. Miss, we should go too. Uncle Fu said softly. I nodded. I took one last look at this place. Not a shred of attachment. I turned around and boarded the carriage. The wheels rolled on. I knew Pei Yanzhou should be back soon. The good show was just beginning. When Pei Yanzhou returned, it was already getting dark. His face carried some smugness and fatigue. Seems he had properly settled matters regarding his illegitimate son. Perhaps in his view, I had thrown enough of a tantrum and was waiting for him to come back and give me a way out. He would walk into the study and condescendingly say a few soft words to me. Then this matter would just blow over. I would still be his Duke's wife. That child would become my legitimate son in name. He wouldn't have lost anything. Instead, he'd have gained a bloodline to continue his family line. What a perfect plan. Too bad he miscalculated. One step. Through the crack in the carriage window, I could see him rein in his horse and stop at the Duke's manor entrance. His expression instantly froze. Where the plaque reading Jin Shen He had originally hung, there was now nothing but emptiness. The majestic jade-stone lions at the entrance had also vanished without a trace. Only two bare stone pedestals remained. The vermilion gate stood open like a huge silent wound. He dismounted and stumbled inside. What greeted him was a deathly silence, and a courtyard so empty you could hear echoes. He stood there dumbfounded in the courtyard. The color drained from his face bit by bit. He probably thought he had come to the wrong place, but this was indeed the Duke's mansion, the home he had lived in for 5 years. Where is everyone? He let out an angry roar. Where the hell did everyone go? A few servants from the mansion ran out trembling from the corners. Master, master, where is Madam? Pei Yanzhou grabbed Pei Yan by the collar. Where did Madam go? What the hell is going on? Pei Yan knelt on the ground, trembling all over. Master, Madam she took all her dowry and moved it all away. Dowry? Pei Yanzhou acted as if he'd heard the joke of the century. What dowry? How much dowry could she have to empty out the entire Duke's mansion? He shoved Pei Yan aside and rushed toward the main hall like a madman. In the main hall there was nothing left. His favorite set of golden phoebe wood table and chairs was gone. The famous calligraphy and paintings hanging on the walls were gone. The treasures on the curio shelf were all gone. Only the empty shelves remained and dust all over the floor. He rushed toward the storehouse. The storehouse door was wide open. Inside was cleaner than his face. Then the bedroom, the study, the accounting room, every place he went to looked like it had been swept by a locust swarm. All the valuable things, all the furnishings he was accustomed to, were all gone. He finally realized something. He stumbled his way back to the courtyard, looking around, this house with carved beams and painted rafters, this garden with pavilions and towers. He suddenly remembered something. 5 years ago, when he married me, the master of ceremonies recited the dowry list for a whole hour. At the time, he only felt it gave him face, but he never paid attention to what exactly was written on that list. He had always thought that I, Shen Qingning, was merely a merchant's daughter. Being able to marry him, a duke, was climbing way above my station. My dowry, naturally, was therefore the property of his duke's manor. He could use it with a clear conscience. Even use my money to support his mistress to earn himself a reputation for being devoted. Now the dream was over. Uncle Fu appeared behind him at some point. My carriage was parked not far away. I could see everything clearly. Uncle Fu was bowing, holding a ledger in his hands. It was a copy of the complete dowry registry. "Duke," Uncle Fu's voice was very calm. "This is what my young lady instructed this old servant to pass on to you. Miss said these 5 years thanks for Duke's care. She took away everything that belonged to her, not a cent more, not a bit less. The property deeds and house deeds of this manor are also with us. By rights, where you're standing now also belongs to the Shen family. But miss, considering the marital bond of 5 years, this empty house is a gift to you. Consider it a parting gift for the divorce." Pei Yanzhou stared fixedly at that ledger. His body was trembling, not from anger, from fear. He reached out, wanting to take it, but it seemed to take all the strength in his body. "Also, Miss asked this old servant to relay a message to you." Uncle Fu paused. She said in this manner, "There are still 3 things that are yours. That imperially bestowed precious horse of yours, those worthless calligraphy and paintings you wrote yourself, and also," Uncle Fu raised his head looking at Pei Yanzhou, speaking word by word, "that child you just brought back." Pei Yanzhou's breathing instantly stopped. It was as if someone had pulled all the bones out of his body. His body went limp, straight down, he collapsed onto the ground. That splendid official robe he was so proud of was covered in dust. A complete mess. I lowered the carriage curtain. "Uncle Fu? Let's go." "Yes, miss." The carriage slowly started moving behind us. No more sounds came. I didn't turn back to look at his pitiful appearance. He brought it upon himself. "That is all, Pei Yanzhou. Your good days are over, and mine have only just begun." My new home was in Qingku Alley on the south side of Capital City, a residence with 3 courtyards called Ning Garden. This was also part of my dowry. It is just that all these years I had never set foot here, only having a few old servants watch over it. Pei Yanzhou didn't even know of its existence. He thought that apart from the Duke's manor, I had nowhere to go. He thought that without him, I would end up on the streets. The carriage stopped at the entrance of Ningyuan. Uncle Fu got off first and respectfully lifted the carriage curtain for me. "Miss, we're home." I held his hand and stepped down from the carriage. Before me stood an elegant yet grand residence. It didn't have the strict formality of the Duke's manor, but everywhere showed the refinement of Jiangnian gardens. The servants at the entrance had been waiting and knelt down in unison. "Welcome home, master." I nodded and walked in. The garden was brightly lit. The 100 or so people I brought out were busily working in an orderly manner. Trunks and boxes were being carried to various storerooms. Sorted by category, furniture and objects were also being placed in rooms that had been planned out long ago. There was no chaos. It was as if this wasn't their first day here, but rather they had already lived here for many years. These were my people. Uncle Fu pushed open the door to the main room for me. The room had already been filled with the calming incense I usually use. The brazier was burning vigorously. The young maids brought hot tea and snacks. Everything was exactly the same as before. I left the Shen family and married into the Duke's manor. I sat down and took a sip of hot tea. The warm tea slid down my throat, dispelling the chill that had occupied my heart for 5 years. I finally came back to life. "Miss, you should rest first. This old servant will keep watch over things outside," Uncle Fu said. "No need." I put down the teacup. "Bring me the latest account books from the estates and shops in Jiangnian for me to look at. Over the past 5 years, in order to play the role of a virtuous duke's wife, I had handed over many household affairs to those below me. What I thought about every day was how to please Pei Yanzhou, how to manage his large household. I had turned myself into a joke. Starting today, I'm going to pick up everything I've lost piece by piece." Uncle Fu's eyes lit up, revealing a bit of relief. "Yes, Miss Old Servant has had them prepared for you long ago." He quickly brought over a thick stack of account books. I opened the first one. It was about the silk business. Under the candlelight, I read extremely carefully. Time passed bit by bit. The voices outside gradually subsided. My new home returned to tranquility after the commotion. Uncle Fu stayed by my side the whole time, adding tea for me and trimming the candle wick. "Miss, it is late. You should rest," he urged softly. I shook my head without looking up. Has the news come back yet? Fubo knew what I was asking about. Word came back, speak, the Duke. He is still sitting in that empty mansion. After dark, when the servants wanted to light the lamps, they found there wasn't even a single candle left in the storehouse. Pei and wanted to get money from the accounting office, but the accounting office was empty too. In the end, he had to take out his own private savings to buy a few steamed buns and share them with the remaining servants. I heard he didn't eat a single bite, just sat on the stone steps in the courtyard, and has been sitting there until now. I couldn't detect any emotion in Fubo's tone. My pen paused. The image of Pei Anzhou's dejected appearance surfaced in my mind. Once upon a time, he too was the young general everyone in the capital city envied, dressed in fine clothes on spirited horses, full of vigor and ambition. It was I who used the Shen family's vast fortune to pave a path to Qingyun for him. I turned him from a duke with only an empty title into a high official now favored by His Majesty, and fed his ambition and desire until they grew bigger and bigger. So big that he thought everything he possessed was rightfully his. He forgot every gift from fate has its price secretly marked. Let him sit. I spoke indifferently and continued reading my account books. When he figures it out, that is when he'll be able to stand up, though I guess he won't figure it out. With Pei Anzhou's arrogant and conceited temperament, he won't reflect on his own mistakes. He'll only think that I betrayed him, that I destroyed everything he had. He will hate me. Then he'll do everything he can to get back at me. I'm waiting, Uncle Fo. This old servant is here. Pass down my word from this moment on. All shops and banks under my name are to sever all business dealings with the Duke of Jianan's manor. Any outstanding credit or debts from before must be settled in full within 3 days. Doesn't the Duke want to see what I amount to without him? Then I'll let him have a good look. What he amounts to without me. The next day, the entire capital city exploded. The news that the Duke of Jianan had been thrown out by his legal wife spread like wildfire throughout every street and alley of the capital city. In tea houses and taverns, storytellers everywhere were chattering about it. There were countless versions. Some said the Duke kept a mistress in a secret love nest, which enraged the Duke's wife. Some said the Duke's wife was pathologically jealous, failed to produce an heir in 5 years, and was divorced by the Duke with a letter of repudiation. But the most widely circulated version, and the one people loved to gossip about most, was the one closest to the truth. The Duke brought back his first love's orphan and forced his wife to either raise the child or be divorced. As a result, the unimaginably wealthy wife directly chose separation and moved out with a dowry that made up the entire Duke's manor. Overnight, the infinitely glorious Duke became a pauper living in an empty shell. This story was too impactful. It satisfied everyone's curiosity for the bizarre. Miss Everyone Outside is saying you're the capital city's #1 shrew. Uncle Fu served me food while sharing the news he'd gathered. I smiled, not caring at all. Being a shrew is better than being a resentful wife. What about Pei Anzhou? The Duke left before dawn, wearing his official robes, riding that precious sweating blood horse. He went to the palace for the morning court, looking like he was trying to keep his composure. I could imagine how he looked. Spine held ramrod straight. His face must have looked terrible. Someone who cares so much about face like him, now the laughingstock of the entire capital city, must be in turmoil inside. But he has to hold it together. He is the Duke of Jianan. The Emperor's favored one. He can't fall apart, at least. Not in front of others. After lunch, Uncle Fu brought another piece of news. Miss, after court, the Duke didn't return to that empty mansion. Where did he go? I asked. He went to the Shen family's old estate. He went to see the master. My hand holding the teacup froze in midair, just as expected. When he can't deal with me himself, he goes to find my family to pressure me. This is his usual trick, using so-called filial piety and so-called family reputation to force me to comply. What did he say? The person this old servant sent was too far away to hear clearly. I only know that the Duke stayed in the master's study for a full hour. When he came out, the master's expression was very unpleasant. The Duke's face, on the other hand, had a certain air of confidence in his victory. Uncle Fu's face showed some worry. Miss, the master he. I know. I put down my teacup. That father of mine, I know him all too well. He is a successful merchant, but also someone extremely protective of his reputation and concerned with maintaining face. I caused such a huge scandal, making him and the entire Shen family a laughingstock. He must be truly furious. Pei Yanzhou definitely embellished the story in front of him, portraying himself as a victim and depicting me as an ungrateful madwoman. And my father, for the sake of the Shen family's reputation, will very likely force me to compromise. Sure enough, before long, the steward from the Shen family's old mansion came to the door in person. His attitude was respectful, but his words were firm. Eldest Miss, the master requests that you return to the residence immediately. He says there are important matters to discuss with you. Uncle Fu replied on my behalf, Our miss is feeling unwell. She will visit the master another day. This was a delaying tactic, but the steward refused to leave. He stood in the courtyard and spoke loudly. Eldest Miss, the master said, if you don't come back, he'll come personally to fetch you. When that happens and the whole neighborhood hears about it, the one who'll lose face is still you. This was a blatant threat. Using my father's name, Uncle Fu's face turned white with anger. I raised my hand, indicating he needn't say more. I stood up and straightened my clothes. Since father so wishes to see me, if I don't go, it would make me seem unfilial. Uncle Fu, this old servant is here. Prepare the carriage. Also bring those account books I prepared for father. Doesn't he want to discuss important matters? Then I'll have a good discussion with him I want to see in the face of absolute interests. How much weight his ridiculous paternal authority and dignity still carry. The Shen family's old residence was still as grand as I remembered, but stepping into this estate I felt not a bit of warmth, only a cold, scrutinizing oppression. My father, Shen Wanshan, was sitting in the main seat of the hall. Beside him sat my eldest brother, Shen Qinghe. Both their faces were as somber as water. Seeing me enter, father let out a heavy snort. You still know to come back. His voice was full of suppressed fury. I paid no attention to his anger. I calmly walked forward and curtsied slightly. Your daughter greets father and eldest brother. The etiquette was impeccable, without a single flaw. Eldest brother Shen Qinghe glanced at me with complicated eyes, wanting to say something but was glared back into silence by father's look. Do you still have me, your father, in your eyes? Shen Wanshan slammed the table. You've completely disgraced the Shen family. Do you know what people outside are saying about our Shen family now? That daughters of merchant families don't know proper etiquette? That they're arrogant and domineering, daring even to throw the duke out? A Shen family's 100-year reputation destroyed overnight in one fell swoop. The more he spoke, the angrier he got, his hand pointing at me trembling. I don't care what conflicts you have with Pei Yanzhou. Today you will immediately move back to the Duke's residence. Go apologize to him and beg for his forgiveness. Otherwise you are no longer my daughter, Shen Wanshan. And the Shen family has no unfilial daughter like you. He finished speaking. The hall was very quiet. I raised my head and looked at him quietly, looking at this man who gave birth to and raised me, yet never truly understood me. In his world, the family's interests and reputation are above all else. A daughter's happiness and grievances are not worth mentioning. Father, I spoke, my voice not loud but very clear. Are you finished? Shen Wanshan was stunned, probably didn't expect this kind of reaction from me. Now that you're done, it is my turn to speak. I turned around and gestured to Uncle Fu. Uncle Fu immediately presented the account books he was holding in his arms respectfully. Father, these are the total accounts of my dowry expenses for the 5 years since I married into the Duke's manor. Shen Wanshan frowned and didn't take them. I continued speaking on my own. In these 5 years, Pei Yanzhou's official robes, social engagements, and gift exchanges cost me Senten Artandun taels of silver. The provisions for over 100 people in the Duke's manor, repairing the estate, and acquiring furnishings cost me Liuqi Linlin taels. And also he used my money to purchase a separate residence outside to settle that misshue of his, which cost no less than Artandun taels in total. Every single expense in these accounts is recorded clearly. Father, you're a businessman. Tell me, didn't I lose everything on this deal? Shen Wanshan's expression changed. My eldest brother, Shen Qinghe, even gasped. They knew Peiyanjo was spending my money, but they didn't know he was squandering it so recklessly without any restraint. Shen Wanshan's lips moved, wanting to say something but couldn't speak. Father, I know you value your reputation, I continued, but you value the Shen family's business even more. When I married, the dowry you gave me, including the silk from Zhongnan, the tea and horses from the northern lands, the money houses in the capital city, how much profit they bring to the Shen family each year. You know it well. Over the past 5 years, all that profit has turned into brocade robes on Peiyanjo's body, fine wine in his mouth, and precious trinkets in the mansion. From today on, that won't happen anymore. These businesses I will personally take over. They will create wealth for me, and only for me. I looked into my father's eyes and said, word by word, Father, now, do you still want to force me back to that empty shell of a duke's mansion? Do you want a daughter who can bring endless wealth to the family? Or do you want a foolish duke's wife who, for the sake of so-called reputation, constantly drains the family's lifeblood to feed an ungrateful wolf? Silence, a deathly silence. Fine beads of sweat seeped out on Shen Wanshan's forehead. He looked at me, his eyes full of shock and unfamiliarity, as if he were meeting his daughter for the first time. He was a merchant. Merchants understand weighing pros and cons best, between reputation and cold hard cash, which to choose. He knew better than anyone. After a long while, he slumped back against the chair wearily. Your matters, I won't interfere anymore, he said. Do as you see fit, I won. I didn't bother with his and my eldest brother's complicated expressions. I turned around and, with Uncle Fu, walked out of this main hall that made me feel suffocated. When I reached the doorway, a servant came running in hurriedly, looking panicked. Master, eldest miss, something terrible has happened. People from Sihai Money House, along with bailiffs from the government office, have gone to the Duke of Jianan's estate. They say they're going to seal the estate to collect debts. I stopped in my tracks, the corners of my mouth curling up slightly. The good show has begun. I'm dying of laughter. Shen Qingying's combo moves are just textbook level, how to elegantly get revenge. Look how smart she is. First she empties out the Duke's estate, leaving that scumbag Pei with nothing, then cuts off all his sources of income, and finally seals his estate in front of all of Capital City. This isn't just a divorce, this is straight up a dimensional reduction strike. Peiyanjo probably won't understand, even in death, how that gentle and virtuous little wife, who let him do whatever he wanted, suddenly turned into an all-powerful boss who can cover the sky with one hand. But seriously, this story teaches us a lesson. Never underestimate a woman who controls the finances, especially when she has got brains too. Now Peiyanjo has nothing left except that horse and a few crappy paintings. It really proves that saying, if you mess around, sooner or later you'll pay for it. When I walked out the Shen family gates, the weather was just right. The afternoon in the capital city always carried a lazy, languid warmth. People came and went on Long Street, a scene of bustling prosperity. My carriage didn't head directly back to Ninggarden. Instead, it moved at a leisurely pace toward the direction of the Duke of Jianan's estate. Uncle Fu sat on the carriage shaft, asking me softly, Miss, do you want to go see it yourself? No. I shook my head. I just want to find a good spot to watch the show. The carriage stopped in the back alley of a tea house not far from the Duke's estate. This tea house had an excellent location. The private room on the second floor faced directly toward the Duke's estate entrance. I went upstairs. Uncle Fu had already taken care of everything. In the private room, the fragrance of tea wafted through the air. I opened the window and had a perfect view of the farce across the street that had already reached its climax. The entrance of the Duke's estate, once bustling with carriages and horses, was now packed so tightly that not even water could trickle through. The common folk craned their necks, pointing and gesturing, their faces full of excitement and curiosity. In the center of the crowd, several people wearing the uniforms of Universal Money House, clerks were holding abacuses and account books. Calling out loudly, the Duke of Jianan, Peiyanjo, borrowed 50,000 taels of silver in the 3rd year of Jingming for renovating the back garden, which remains unpaid to this day. In the 4th year of Jingming, he owed Brocade Pavilion 20 bolts of premium cloud brocade, worth 30,000 taels, which remains unpaid to this day. In the 5th year of Jingming, he took a jade Buddha from the previous dynasty from Treasure Trove, worth 80,000 taels. which remains unpaid to this day. Compound interest upon interest, with accumulated debt totaling 213,600 taels. The money house's proprietor was a fat man with a shrewd look all over his face. Behind him stood several bailiffs from the government office. They held sealing strips and chains in their hands, expressionless. Peianjo stood before this group of people. He still wore that distinguished official's robe, but that official's robe at this moment seemed like a huge mockery. His complexion was no longer ashen, but rather a deathly gray. His lips were pressed tightly together, his body taut like a fully drawn bow. Outrageous, he finally squeezed out 2 words through his teeth. I am a first-rank duke of the imperial court. How could I owe money to you merchants? This is slander. This is a frame-up. The money house proprietor laughed. He raised an account book high. Duke. This has it written in black and white, with your personal signature and your private seal stamped on it. You say we're slandering you, but is this handprint of yours fake too? When you took money from our money house back then, you said it all nice and proper, that you'd repay by year's end. But it has been dragged out year after year. We're just a small business. We really can't afford to be dragged down by you any longer. His words drew a burst of laughter from the surrounding common folk. A dignified duke refusing to pay his debts. This was truly a rare spectacle, one not seen in 100 years. Peianjo trembled all over with rage. He had probably never suffered such utter humiliation before. He wanted to explode in anger, but seeing the bailiff standing nearby, he forcibly suppressed his rage. Debts must be repaid, it is only natural. This is the law of Great Joe. Even imperial relatives cannot shirk this obligation. This duke is just temporarily short on cash. He forced himself to argue. In a few days, I'll definitely repay you. In a few days, which few days? The shopkeeper pressed relentlessly. Duke, you said the same thing last year. Our master said that if you don't repay the debt today, we have no choice. We can only ask the officials to act according to the law, seal this estate, and use it to settle the debt. Seal the estate? Peianjo's eyes instantly turned red. You dare. This is the Duke's estate, an imperially bestowed residence. Who among you dares touch it? He was like a cornered beast, driven to desperation, letting out a final roar. However, no one feared him. The head bailiff walked forward with a cold expression. Duke, we are merely following orders. The Four Seas Money House has already submitted the complaint to the capital prefecture, and the prefect personally approved the writ. If you continue to obstruct us, it constitutes interference with official duties, and will have no choice but to offend you. With that, he waved his hand. Seal it. 2 bailiffs immediately stepped forward, took out huge seal strips, and pasted them crosswise on that vermilion-colored gate. Clang came a sound. A large lock secured the Duke's manor's last shred of dignity. It also locked away all of Peianjo's escape routes. He stared blankly at that glaring seal strip. His entire being seemed to have had its soul extracted. The surrounding crowd erupted in even louder discussion. Those voices were like countless needles piercing into his ears. TSK, even the Duke's manor has been sealed. Fortune truly does turn in cycles. I heard he drove his wife away just yesterday, and today he has become a penniless beggar. Serves him right, this kind of man deserves exactly this treatment. Peianjo's body swayed. He suddenly turned his head, using a venomous, man-eating gaze to sweep fiercely across the crowd. As if searching for something, my gaze collided with his across the distance. Across Long Street, across the bobbing heads. I could clearly see the shock, disbelief, and towering hatred in his eyes. He recognized me, he understood. All of this was my handiwork. I raised my teacup and lifted it toward him. Then I drained it in one gulp. Peianjo, this is just an appetizer. Your retribution is yet to come. The Duke's mansion was sealed, and Peianjo had nowhere to go. This news swept through the entire capital city's high society like a violent storm. Everyone was stunned by my thunderous methods. They had originally thought this was just an ordinary quarrel between husband and wife, but they never expected I would be this ruthless, this merciless. I directly trampled the once high and mighty Duke of Jinan into the mud. Peianjo had nowhere to go. He couldn't possibly wander the streets with that child. That would be more painful than killing him. He led that Fergana horse holding that trembling child's hand. Walking aimlessly through the streets of the capital city, his official robe looked especially shabby in the sunset. Those colleagues who used to call him brother now avoided him like the plague. He went to visit the Minister of Personnel's home, but was turned away at the door. The servants of the minister's mansion said the master had caught a cold and wasn't receiving guests. He went to the Vice Minister of War's mansion wanting to borrow some silver to get by. The vice minister's wife said tearfully that their home had been robbed and they were really strapped for cash. He begged everyone he could possibly beg. What he got in return was only cold stares and excuses. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. When the wall collapses, everyone pushes. In this world, there is never a shortage of those who add flowers to brocade, but rarely anyone who sends charcoal in the snow, especially after everyone knew that the one he offended was me, the Shen family, who controls half of Great Zhou's wealth. Whoever dares to help him is making an enemy of me. Making an enemy of me is making an enemy of their own purse. Those officials who are sharp as foxes, how could they not calculate this clearly? Night fell, Peiyanzhou finally had nowhere left to turn. The people sent by Uncle Fu returned to report. Miss the Duke. He took the child to a Yuelai inn in the west of the city. That is the lowest class inn in the capital city. I heard that he pawned the jade pendant worn at his waist to get money for one room and a few cold steamed buns. The child was crying from hunger, and he had no choice but to feed the child some cold water. Uncle Fu's tone was somewhat complicated. Without lifting my head, I flipped through the account book and gave a faint What else also? He had pay and go to the palace to submit a request, wanting an audience with His Majesty. But word came from the palace that His Majesty is unwell and won't see anyone. I let out a cold laugh. The emperor isn't stupid. He is a wise ruler, and what he is best at is the art of balance. Peiyanzhou is a blade in his hand. But now the scabbard of this blade, that is me, is not happy. I can not only make this blade sharp, but I can also turn it into a pile of scrap metal in an instant. The emperor is waiting for my anger to subside. Or rather, until I give a signal. Before that, he won't offend me. This money tree, for the sake of a subject who has already lost his value. Peiyanzhou's last hope was also shattered. He became truly alone and friendless. Miss Uncle Fu hesitated for a moment, but still spoke up. This old servant dares to speak out of turn. The Duke is after all a court official. Now that he has been pushed to this point, will he become like a cornered dog that will jump over a wall? I put down my brush and looked out the window. The moonlight was like water spilling over the tranquil courtyard of Ning Garden. Uncle Fu, do you think a tiger that has had its teeth pulled and claws broken can still hurt people? He is not a cornered dog jumping over a wall right now. He is at his wit's end. He has no cards left to play. Except for, I paused, except for that pitiful bit of pride he has as a man. He will come find me when all his paths are blocked, when he is abandoned by the entire world. The only one he can think of in the end is me. He'll come to question me, threaten me, even beg me. Because deep in his heart, he still believes that I, Shen Qingying, am still that foolish woman who loved him for 5 years and could give up everything for him. He thinks that as long as he is willing to lower his noble head, I'll definitely soften. Too bad, he'll never know. That foolish woman, when he brought that child and said those words, raise it or be divorced, had already died. Pass down my order. Starting tomorrow, Ning Garden is closed to all visitors. Double the guards, patrol day and night, don't allow any outsiders to come near. Especially anyone with the surname Pei. Butler Fu understood perfectly. Yes, miss. This old servant will see to it right away. I picked up my brush again. The calm before the storm is always brief. What I need to do is fortify all my levies. Then, quietly admire his last futile struggle. The third day, in the morning, Peiyanzhou came. He came alone, without that child, and without wearing his official robes. He changed into a half-worn blue robe, his hair tied with a wooden hairpin. He looked like a down-and-out scholar. Only those eyes were filled with bloodshot veins, with suppressed madness and hatred churning inside. He was stopped at the main gate of Ning Garden. The guards under my command were all carefully selected by me from the Shen family's merchant caravan. Escorts, each one exceptional in skill and utterly loyal. They stood like 2 iron towers, blocking Peiyanzhou's path. I want to see Shen Qingying. His voice was terribly hoarse. Tell her to come out and see me. The head guard's face remained expressionless. My master said she is not receiving guests, especially those surnamed Pei. You tell her to come out. Pei Yanzhou roared, like a crazed tiger. Shen Qingning, you venomous woman. Get the hell out here, he tried to force his way in. 2 guards, one on the left and one on the right, reached out and pinned him down firmly. He struggled desperately, but as if clamped by iron pincers, he couldn't move. The former young general, now unable to even defeat 2 guards. 5 years of comfortable and wealthy living had long since worn away all his sharpness and martial skills. Uncle Fu walked to my side and asked in a low voice, "Miss, should we drive him away?" I stood in the corridor on the 2nd floor, looking down at the farce at the entrance from above. I shook my head. No rush. Let him make a scene. The louder he makes a scene, the more it proves how miserably he is lost. Go, open the main gate. Uncle Fu was taken aback, but still faithfully carried out my order. The 2 heavy black lacquered wooden doors of Ning Garden slowly opened. Pei Yanzhou stopped struggling. He saw me standing on the corridor. I was also looking at him. Our eyes met in the air once again, only this time. He stood in the dust, looking up at me, and I stood in the clouds, looking down at him. Shen Qingning. He looked at me, his eyes extremely complicated. There was anger, unwillingness, resentment, and something he himself hadn't even noticed. Regret. Let's talk, he said. There is nothing to talk about between us. My voice was cold, devoid of emotion. Do you have to be so ruthless? He questioned me. These 5 years, even if there is no affection, there should be some gratitude, right? Just for some nonsensical child, you're going to destroy me, destroy everything we had in these 5 years. I laughed somewhat bleakly. Pei Yanzhou, do you still not understand even now? The one who destroyed us wasn't me, it was you. It was you who personally brought that child before me and threatened me with a divorce letter. It was you who personally shattered my last illusion about you. Gratitude? I looked at him, asking back word by word. I, Shen Qingning, supported you and your duke's manor with real money for 5 years, turned you from a poor military officer with nothing but an empty title into what you are today. What did you give me in return? Cold violence, indifference, betrayal, and taking everything for granted. The woman you keep outside, and the son she bore you, Pei Yanzhou, your so-called gratitude is way too cheap. Each of my words was like a knife stabbing hard into his heart. His face turned red, then white. I left him speechless. After a long while, he took a deep breath, his tone softening. It even carried a hint of pleading. Qingning, I know I was wrong back then. I was confused for a moment. Come back. As long as you come back, I'll send that child away immediately, never to appear before you again. We will live a good life like before. Okay, he thought this was already a huge concession. He thought I was still waiting for him to say this. Looking at him like this, I just found it ridiculous. Pei Yanzhou, did you forget you're the one who gave me 2 choices, raise him or be divorced? I made my choice, you're the one who can't handle losing. As for going back with you, I looked at him, the smile on my lips turning cold and cruel. A man who can't even get enough to eat, living in the lowest class inn in the entire capital city. A stray dog abandoned by his colleagues and disdained by his majesty. What qualifications do you have now to make me go back with you? Are you even worthy? I said those last 3 words very softly, yet they were like 3 heavy hammers. Smashing hard upon Pei Yanzhou's dignity, his body began to tremble violently. The last trace of color drained from his face. He stared at me intently, the pleading and regret in his eyes completely replaced by a world-destroying hatred. He knew that everything was beyond redemption now. Watching him completely crushed, my heart felt not a ripple of emotion. I turned around, unwilling to look at him even once more. Uncle Fu, this old servant is here. Close the door. Please escort Lord Pei out from now on. Don't let this kind of person defile the grounds of Ning Garden anymore. Yes, miss. I walked back to my room. Behind me came Pei Yanzhou's shrill and venomous roar. Shen Qingning, you just wait. The humiliation I, Pei Yanzhou, suffered today one day, I will make you pay back 1,000, 100 times over. I paid him no mind. The wailing of a defeated dog is the most powerless noise. Pei Yanzhou, I'm waiting. I'm waiting to see what you've got left to fight me with. Pei Yanzhou's roar left no echo in Ning Garden. The main gate closed, separating 2 worlds inside and out. My world was the warm hearth, fragrant tea, and the ledgers spread across the table representing endless wealth. His world was the cold streets, the disdainful looks of passers-by, and the despair of having nothing. I thought he would fall silent from then on, like a fish tossed ashore, struggling feebly a few times before dying completely. I underestimated the power that hatred could give a man, especially a man who once had everything, then lost it all in an instant. Over the next few days, Capital City remained calm and peaceful. The name Peiyanjo seemed to become taboo. No one mentioned it anymore. Those powerful figures who once surrounded him quickly found new topics and new people to fawn over. I proceeded methodically, beginning to consolidate the businesses under my name. 5 years was enough time for many things to change. Some managers had grown lazy, some stewards had developed ulterior motives. I spent a full 10 days cleaning up all the accumulated problems. Those who needed replacing were replaced, accounts that needed checking were checked. My swift and decisive methods reminded everyone that I'm not only the daughter of the Shen family, I'm also that Shen Qingying who, at 13, could follow my father, travel between the southern goods and northern warehouses, and chat and laugh with those cunning old merchants. I'm a born merchant. What flows in my blood is a keen sense for profit and absolute control over numbers. That afternoon, I was checking the accounts for a batch of furs shipped from beyond the pass. Uncle Fu walked in, his expression somewhat grave. "Miss, there is something this old servant finds rather suspicious." "Speak, I didn't look up." "These past few days, unfamiliar faces have been lingering around several of our rice shops and fabric stores. I had people investigate. They're not local thugs, but rather seem like people from the military. Quick, on their feet, with fierce eyes." The brush in my hand stopped. I raised my head. "Peiyanjo." "Yes," Uncle Fu nodded. "Though he has been abandoned by everyone, he was a general for several years after all, in the army. There are still a few who remember the old bond and are willing to risk their lives for him. I found out he sold that purebred horse the Emperor bestowed upon him. All the money from the sale was used to settle those men. I understood since the civil approach won't work, he wants to try force. He wants to use the most primitive and most foolish method to take revenge on me. He thought that by ruining my business, he would ruin me. How many people do they have?" I asked. "About 20 or so. The leader is called Lihu Peiyanjo's former captain of the personal guards, fiercely loyal to him." "What does he want to do?" "Not clear yet. They're very cautious, just scoping out the places, haven't made a move. But judging from the locations they're watching, most likely they want to target our several large warehouses outside the city." Uncle Fu's face carried a hint of killing intent. "Miss, should this old servant send people to first them?" He made a throat-slitting gesture. I shook my head. "No need. If he wants to play, I'll play along with him. To strike a snake, you must strike its vital point. Just dealing with a few lackeys, that is boring. I want to make sure he can never turn things around again for the rest of his life." I stood up and walked to the window, looking at the blooming winter suite in the courtyard. "Doesn't he want to burn my warehouses?" "Then I'll add more fuel to the fire, Uncle Fu. This old servant is here. Spread the word. Say that I just had a shipload of the finest tribute Su embroidery shipped in from Jiangnan, worth 500,000 taels. In 3 days, it will be stored in the largest warehouse on the west side of the city." Uncle Fu's eyes lit up, instantly understanding what I meant. "Miss, are you planning to lure the snake out of its hole?" "No." I turned around, looked at him, and smiled. "I'm planning to close the door and beat the dog. Go to the capital prefecture office and find Lord Zhang. The prefect, tell him I suspect bandits have infiltrated the capital city, intending to rob my goods, and ask him to send people to assist. Remember, have his people make their move after our people do. I want those people caught red-handed with the stolen goods, not a single one escapes. And I want everyone in the entire capital city to see what kind of trash the Duke of Jianan really is." Uncle Fu bowed to receive the order, his eyes full of excitement. "Yes, miss, this old servant will go do it right away. Peiyanjo, you think you still have soldiers at your command? You think you can still solve problems with force like on the battlefield? You're wrong. This is the capital city, a place where law, rules, and capital matter, and all three of those are now in my hands." The night was dark as ink. The warehouse district on the western outskirts of the capital city was completely silent. Only a few dim lanterns swayed in the cold wind. My largest silk warehouse was standing quietly in this darkness at this moment. From the outside, it looked no different from usual, only a few guards were patrolling back and forth in boredom. However, in the shadows a few hundred paces around the warehouse, a tight dragnet had already been laid. My people, plus the constables from the capital prefecture, nearly 200 in total, had the place surrounded so tightly that not even water could trickle through. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the fish to take the bait. I didn't go to the scene myself. Dealing with someone like Peiyanjo didn't require me to personally oversee things. I sat comfortably in the study of Ninggarden, brewing a pot of fresh tea. Uncle Fu stood by my side, receiving updates from our people at the front line from time to time. Miss, they're here. Just after the hour of Z, the message came. 23 people in total, led by Li Hu, all changed into night clothes, moving with agility. They avoided all the obvious sentries and have already infiltrated the warehouse compound. I nodded, signaling Uncle Fu to continue. They didn't set the fire immediately, but pried open the door of the main warehouse. Looks like they want to steal things first, then set the fire. I smiled. Greed is always the original sin. Tell our people to let them carry things out. The more they take, the heavier the charges. Yes, miss. The order was passed down. The wait in the darkness became somewhat long. 3 rounds of tea past news from ahead came again. Miss, they've started moving things. Looks like the Wubound. Lin tail's worth of Su embroidery has quite a strong appeal to them. They brought 3 mule carts and are now frantically loading goods onto them. Seems like they want to grab as much as they can. I put down my teacup. About time. Let them move things for another quarter hour. After a quarter hour, have the capital city administration's people make their move. Remember, the bigger the commotion, the better. I want half the capital city to hear tonight's commotion. Uncle Fu received the order and left. I walked to the window and pushed it open. A gust of cold night wind blew in. I looked toward the west side of the city from there. It seemed I could already see firelight and hear the sounds of shouting and fighting. Peiyanjo, tonight you will lose the last thing you have. Your reputation, your past, the last bit of glory you have as a general West City warehouse. Li Hu and his brothers were working away with great enthusiasm. They hadn't expected things would go so smoothly. The defenses were as loose as a sieve. The warehouse was piled full of brocade boxes. Opening them, sure enough, they were dazzling Su embroideries. Everyone's eyes lit up with excitement. They seemed to have already seen the scene of making a comeback with the Duke after selling off these goods. Faster, move faster, Li Hu urged in a low voice. Fill these 3 carts and we'll set the fire and get out of here. Just as they lifted the last box onto the mule cart, an unexpected change occurred around the warehouse. Torches suddenly blazed bright, countless constables wielding swords and spears surged out from all directions. Don't move. Government office on duty, all thieves, surrender now. Li Hu and the others' faces turned deathly pale in an instant. Their minds went completely blank. How could there be people from the government office? It is a trap. Li Hu was the first to react, his eyes nearly splitting with rage. Brothers, fight them, break through. He drew his saber, roaring. These were all veterans who had been on the battlefield, fearless in the face of death for a moment. They actually thought to break open a gap with sheer bloody courage. However, what they faced were enemies several times their number, and a net that had long been prepared. Arrows fell like rain, flashing blades and swords. Screams of agony, the clashing of weapons, echoed through the night sky. This was a massacre with no suspense whatsoever. In less than half a shichen, the battle was over. Of the 23 people, 7 or 8 were dead, and the rest were all captured with injuries. Li Hu had been struck by 3 arrows and was pinned to the ground by 2 constables. He was still roaring in unwillingness. Lord Zhang, the governor of Jingzhou Prefecture, slowly walked out from behind the crowd. He glanced at the mess all over the ground, and at those 3 carts of so-called Su embroidery. He walked to one of the carts and casually opened a brocade box. Inside was no Su embroidery at all. It was clearly a pile of the cheapest coarse cloth. Lord Zhang let out a cold laugh. What incredible audacity! To dare gather a mob to rob and attempt arson right under the emperor's nose. He walked up to Li Hu and lifted his face with his riding crop. Speak! Who is the mastermind? Li Hu spat out a mouthful of bloody saliva and turned his head to the side. Kill me or cut me up, whatever you please. If you think I'll betray the Duke, dream on, such backbone. Lord Zhang nodded. What a pity. Backbone can't fill your belly, nor can it bring back those dead brothers of yours. Some money, take them all back to the dungeon for me. I have plenty of time and methods to make them talk. He turned around and looked at the advisor beside him. As soon as it is light, go to the palace and submit the request. I want an audience with the emperor. Tell them something major has happened in the capital city. The former Duke of Jianan, Peiyanzhou, is plotting rebellion. The 4 words, plotting rebellion, exploded like a thunderclap in the imperial court before dawn. Lord Zhang, the prefect of Jingzhou, was already beating the drum at the palace gate to appeal for justice. During the morning court session, in front of all the civil and military officials, he presented last night's confessions, material evidence, and over a dozen captured rebel soldiers. Both witness and material evidence were complete. All evidence pointed to the same person, Peiyanzhou. The emperor on the dragon throne had a face so dark it could drip water. He hurled that confession heavily onto the ground. Good, what a fine Duke of Jianan. I showed mercy for his contributions to the state, turning a blind eye to his previous family matters. Never thought he would not only refuse to repent, but actually get worse, gathering his former subordinates, committing robbery and arson in the capital. This shows he has no regard for me, no regard for the laws of Great Zhou. The emperor's voice echoed throughout the Golden Luan Hall. All officials were silent as cicadas in winter. No one dared to speak. They knew that this time the emperor had truly set his mind on killing. Peiyanzhou's actions had already touched his bottom line as an emperor. Where is Peiyanzhou? The emperor roared in anger. Bring him before me. Soon Peiyanzhou, dressed in plain cloth and haggard in appearance, was escorted up from the heavenly prison by 2 fierce imperial guards. He seemed to already know everything. There was no panic on his face, only deathly stillness. He knelt in the hall, not saying a word. Peiyanzhou. The emperor's voice was ice cold. Do you know your crime? Peiyanzhou slowly raised his head, glanced at the emperor, then looked around at those former colleagues of his. Those people all kept their heads lowered, not daring to meet his gaze. He suddenly laughed with utter desolation. This subject, what crime do I have? How dare you? Lord Zhang immediately stepped forward. The witness and evidence are all here, and you still dare to argue. Your personal soldier Li Hu has already confessed everything. It was you who told them to rob the Shen family's warehouse. It was you who promised them that after the deed was done, they would split the loot and make a comeback. Peiyanzhou didn't look at him. His gaze seemed to penetrate through this magnificent palace, seen somewhere else. I just wanted to take back what belongs to me, he murmured to himself. She took everything from me. I just wanted to take back a little bit. Silence. The emperor interrupted him. Your things, which one of your things wasn't built up by the Shen family's wealth? Your official position, your estate, your riches and honors. The Shen family has done everything possible for you. And you, how did you repay them? Favoring your concubine over your wife, bringing back an illegitimate child, driving away your lawful wife. Every single one of these things, which one makes you worthy of being called a man. I must have been blind back then to have put such trust in a heartless, ungrateful wretch like you. The emperor grew angrier as he spoke. His chest heaving violently, Peiyanzhou fell silent. He had no strength to refute, or rather, he no longer wanted to refute. The victor becomes king. The loser becomes bandit. He had lost completely and utterly. Your Majesty, the Minister of Personnel, who had been silent all along, suddenly stepped forward. He was a veteran minister of the court, highly respected. Although Peiyanzhou has committed grave wrongs, considering that he once rendered meritorious service to the nation, I humbly beseech your Majesty to show leniency and spare his life. That is right, your Majesty, please reconsider. Immediately, several old officials echoed in agreement. They weren't pleading for Peiyanzhou, they were protecting a kind of dignity that belonged to the meritorious class. If Peiyanzhou could be dealt with like this today, perhaps they could be dealt with the same way in the future. The emperor looked at them coldly. He naturally understood what these people were thinking. He pondered for a long time. In the great hall, it was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Finally, he spoke. Fine, I shall give face to all of you ministers, and also consider his ancestors' merits. I'll spare his life. He paused, his voice becoming even more chilling. Relay my decree, the criminal minister Pei Yanzhou, whose virtue does not match his position, who failed to discipline his household strictly, who allowed his soldiers to commit violence, his crimes are unpardonable. Effective immediately, his title of Duke of Jianan is revoked, and he is demoted to commoner status. All lands and estates under his name shall be confiscated by the state. Furthermore, he shall be exiled together with the traitor Li Hu and others to the miasma-ridden lands of the southern frontier, never to return to the capital for the rest of his life. Once the decree was issued, the entire court was shocked. This punishment was even more cruel than killing him. Stripping his title, demoting him to commoner, exiling him to the southern frontier. This meant that Pei Yanzhou's life was completely finished. He would fall from the clouds into the most lowly dust, never to rise again. When Pei Yanzhou heard this result, his body shook violently. He raised his head, his face full of disbelief. He could die, but he couldn't accept becoming a commoner with nothing. He couldn't accept being exiled to that barbaric land, living like livestock. No, Your Majesty, you can't do this. He finally broke down and roared. I am the Duke of Jianan. My grandfather shed blood for Great Zhou. You can't take away my title. Drag him out. The emperor waved his hand in disgust, not wanting to look at him anymore. The imperial guards immediately stepped forward, gagged him, and dragged him out of the Golden Luan Hall like a dead dog. His muffled cries gradually faded into the distance. The storm had thus settled. When the news reached Ninggarden, I was trimming a pot of clivia. Uncle Fu recounted the entire course of events. After listening, I only responded with a faint, the scissors fell. An withered yellow leaf drifted to the ground. Miss, do you have nothing you want to say? Uncle Fu asked cautiously. I put down the scissors, picked up the handkerchief beside me, and wiped my hands. What are you saying? He brought this upon himself. It was his own choice. It has nothing to do with me. I walked to the corridor and gazed at the warm winter sun filling the garden. The name Pei Yanzhou from today onwards, forget it. Yes, miss. Oh, Uncle Fu. What about that child? I suddenly remembered. You mean the one the Duke brought back? This old servant sent someone to check at the Yuelai Inn. After Pei Yanzhou was arrested, the innkeeper thought it was bad luck and kicked that child out. A 5 or 6-year-old child with no one to rely on is probably begging on the streets now. There was a hint of sympathy in Uncle Fu's tone. I fell silent for a moment. Send someone to look for him. Once found, send him to the orphanage outside the city. Leave him a sum of money, enough for him to grow up safely and learn to read and write. Just say it is donated by an anonymous benefactor. Uncle Fu was stunned. He probably didn't expect I would make such an arrangement. Miss Yu, this is the adult's crime, has nothing to do with the child. I looked into the distance and said calmly, my revenge is against Pei Yanzhou, not an innocent child. I, Shen Qingning, settle scores where they're due and grudges where they belong. But it is not to the point where I'd lay a hand on a child after doing this. The last connection between Pei Yanzhou and me was completely severed. From now on, the sea is wide and the sky is vast, each of us well in our own way. No, it is me who has the wide sea and vast sky. As for him, may fortune smile upon him. The news of Pei Yanzhou being exiled to the southern frontier was like the last stone cast into the lake, stirring up ripples before completely falling silent. This prosperous pond of the capital city soon had new topics of conversation, new trends. No one mentioned that former Duke of Jianan anymore. As if this person had never existed, and I, Shen Qingning, re-entered everyone's sight in a completely different manner, no longer the Duke's wife who stayed indoors gentle and virtuous, but an independent woman who held astonishing wealth in her hands with sharp and decisive methods. People's way of addressing me had quietly changed from shrew to extraordinary woman, and now a respectful boss Shen. Those estates that once avoided me like the plague now sent invitations of all sorts like snowflakes, flower viewing banquets, tea tasting gatherings, poetry meetings before. These were all circles I racked my brains trying to fit into. Now I found them utterly dull. I had Uncle Fu pile all those gold embossed cards in the corner. It is getting cold, use them as kindling for the fire couldn't be better. Uncle Fu agreed with a smile. He knew that I was no longer the person I used to be. My mind had long since moved beyond the pretenses and machinations of these inner chamber women. Life at Ninggarden was peaceful and fulfilling. Every day I woke to the scent of calming incense, handling accounts and letters sent from all over. In my leisure time, I tended to the flowers and plants in the garden, or read a few idle books. Without Peianzhou, without those infuriating people and matters from the Duke's manor, I felt even my breathing had become much smoother. I was planning something big that could elevate the Shen family business to the next level. I wanted to open an establishment on Juke Avenue, the most prosperous street in the capital city. An establishment that gathered rare treasures from across the land, a money pit exclusively for the consumption of top-tier nobility. I had already chosen a name for it. It would be called Linlang Pavilion. Linlang Pavilion wouldn't just sell things, it would also sell status, sell taste, sell one-of-a-kind experiences. Common jewelry, jade, antiques, and paintings could no longer satisfy the appetites of those top-tier nobles. What I wanted to sell were gemstones tributed from the western regions, luminous pearls harvested from the South Seas, secret incense recipes that only the previous dynasty's imperial family could enjoy, even lost weaving techniques and rare flowers and herbs that existed only in legends. There would only be things they couldn't think of, nothing that my Linlang Pavilion couldn't produce. To this end, I dispatched dozens of merchant caravans to all corners of Great Zhou, heading south to seek out reclusive master craftsmen, north to venture deep into tribes beyond the pass, west through Yangwan to trade with foreign merchants, and east to set sail exploring unknown islands. This is a massive web, a web centered on me, supported by the Shen family's abundant wealth, about to envelop the entire commercial landscape of Great Zhou. Uncle Fu looked at my plan, trembling all over with excitement. Miss, what you're doing here, this is an unprecedented business venture that will never be replicated. I smiled. Since I've already broken free from the cage, naturally I should fly even higher. Peianzhou once said that without him, I am nothing. I'll make sure that even in the barbaric lands thousands of miles away, he'll hear my name. I want him to know that I, Shen Qingying, have never been a vine that clings to anyone. I am the seed that can grow into a towering tree. The preparations for Linlang Pavilion proceeded in an orderly manner. The eyes of the entire capital city were drawn to my astounding undertaking. They were all watching, all speculating just how big a storm does this woman, who just freed herself from the quagmire of marriage, intend to stir up, just as the first stake was driven into the foundation of Linlang Pavilion. An invitation I couldn't refuse was delivered to Ning Garden. It came from the palace. From the inner palace, Her Majesty, the Empress, wanted to see me at the first Imperial Chrysanthemum Banquet since my return to the capital city. The invitation was personally delivered by the most favored lady official at the Empress's side. Her words were also flawless, Shopkeeper Shen. Her Majesty says it has been a long time since she last saw you, and she misses you dearly. She also said that Boss Shen is now a prominent figure in the capital. Such an extraordinary woman, she must see her with her own eyes. I took that gold-embossed phoenix-decorated invitation. My mind was crystal clear. This wasn't longing, nor was it curiosity. This was a test, a warning, and also a kind of scrutiny. After I had completely destroyed Peianzhou, the imperial family was finally going to personally step in to probe the depths of me, Shen Qingying. This trip was a Hongmen banquet, but also a stairway to heaven. A dragon's pool and tiger's den, but also a chance to soar into the sky. I looked at the female official and smiled faintly. Please trouble yourself to report back to Her Majesty the Empress. This commoner woman, Shen Qingying, will attend the banquet punctually in 3 days. 3 days later, the imperial garden, the chrysanthemums were in full bloom, golden stamens and silver threads, a riot of purples and reds. The air was filled with the crisp fragrance of chrysanthemums and a faint scent of wine. Nearly all the family members of ranked officials in the capital had arrived. Noble ladies gathered in small groups, their clothes fragrant and hair ornaments gleaming, talking and laughing cheerfully. When my carriage stopped at the entrance to the imperial garden, it instantly drew everyone's gaze. Today I wore an elegant moon-white long dress with flowing cloud patterns embroidered in silver thread along the hem. I wore no elaborate jewelry. Only in my hair I had inserted at an angle a smooth mutton-fat white jade hairpin. My entire appearance was refined and elegant like an ink wash painting, yet amid the jingling jade ornaments and clusters of richly dressed noblewomen, I appeared particularly conspicuous. I know they're all looking at me. In their eyes there's curiosity, jealousy, contempt, and also deep wariness. I'm the only outsider at this banquet. I have no official status, no husband's family, just a merchant's daughter. Yet I sit here on equal footing with them. Even Her Majesty the Empress regards me with special attention. A eunuch guides me through the crowd toward the main seat. The Empress sits upright on the phoenix throne, in bright yellow palace robes, dignified and noble. She appears to be around 40, well-maintained, with an air of authority between her brows that comes from long holding high position. Commoner Shenqing pays respects to Her Majesty, the Empress. May Your Majesty enjoy 1,000 years of golden peace. I step forward and perform a standard curtsy, rise. The Empress's voice is gentle, revealing neither pleasure nor anger. Grant her a seat. I'm arranged at a position neither too close nor too far from the Empress. This position is quite subtle. It shows regard for me while not being so excessive as to violate propriety. I've long heard that Ba Shen is an extraordinary woman in the capital. Seeing you today, your bearing is indeed exceptional. The Empress picks up her teacup and takes a light sip. This palace has also heard about the matter concerning Minister Pei. She changes the subject, casually bringing up Pei Yanzhou. The atmosphere instantly falls silent. Everyone's ears perk up. He brought this upon himself, failing the Emperor's grace and failing you as well. You did very well. A woman should live as herself. No need to waste energy on unworthy men. Her words were beyond everyone's expectations. My heart also trembled slightly. She didn't blame me, but instead comforted me, even praised me. Thank you for your understanding, Your Majesty. I answered with lowered eyes and a submissive expression. This commoner woman dares not take credit. Everything is due to His Majesty's keen discernment and the fairness and strictness of the law. I deflected all the credit completely. The Empress looked at me deeply and smiled. That smile carried a hint of approval. She didn't continue this topic, turning instead to chat idly with the consorts beside her. But this test was clearly not yet over. Soon someone picked up the thread of conversation. The one who spoke was the third young lady of the Duke of Ying's household, Li Yanran. The Duke of Ying and Pei Yanzhou's grandfather had once been comrades on the battlefield, and the two families had always maintained good relations. Ba Shen really has such great airs now that even we noble families can't get you to accept our invitations. Li Yanran held her wine cup, looking at me with a smile, though her words carried barbs. I heard you're opening some Linlang Pavilion on Juke Avenue. What a grand undertaking indeed. Only what a pity she deliberately drew out her tone. A woman is ultimately rootless duckweed. No matter how big her business grows, without someone to rely on, it is all just flowers in a mirror and moon and water. It can fall apart at any moment. Those words were extremely vicious. They mocked both my merchant status and hinted at my divorce, implying I had no husband's family as a backer. The noble ladies around us all showed expressions of watching a good show. I didn't get angry. I simply raised my eyes and looked at her quietly, looking at the ruby hairpin with flowing brilliance on her head. Then I spoke lightly. Rootless duckweed can still cover entire rivers and lakes. Flowers in a mirror and moon and water can sometimes reflect the true human heart. The hairpin on 3rd Miss Lee's head is truly beautiful. It is a new design that just came out last month from Treasure Pavilion under the Shen family, called Phoenix Seeking Phoenix, made with top-grade pigeon blood red tribute from the western regions. In all of Capital City, there is only this one piece priced at 3,000 taels of silver. I paused, picked up my teacup, and blew on the hot steam. The monthly allowance at the Duke of Ying's mansion, if I remember correctly, 3rd Miss, your monthly stipend is 30 taels. For this hairpin, even without eating or drinking, you'd probably need to save up for 8 or 9 years, wouldn't you? I wonder which talented young gentleman has been so generous to 3rd Miss. My voice wasn't loud yet. It was like a resounding slap striking hard across Li Yanran's face. Her complexion instantly turned deathly pale with a whoosh. Her intimate relationship with a certain prince was no secret, but this kind of thing could never be said out in the open, especially in front of the Empress. The air around us seemed to freeze. No one expected my counterattack to be so precise, so lethal. I didn't argue with her about whether women should or shouldn't have someone to rely on. I simply used the simplest yet most brutal facts to tell her, and everyone present the status you take so much pride in, the wealth and glory you use to maintain appearances. Their source is precisely what I disdain the most, money, and I have plenty of money, so much that I can easily grasp all of your lifelines. You're slandering me, Leanneren's lips trembled. And after a long while, she squeezed out this sentence. I just smiled and said nothing more. The outcome was already decided. Saying more would be pointless. At the head seat, the Empress hadn't spoken from beginning to end, but her gaze had been fixed on me the whole time. In that gaze, the probing intent grew even stronger. That unpleasant chrysanthemum viewing banquet finally ended in a strange atmosphere. Leanneren excused herself early, and when she left, her expression looked worse than if she were crying. The other noble ladies' gazes toward me had completely changed as well. If before it was wariness, then now it was fear. I had used a method they couldn't understand or counter to shatter the superiority they depended on for their existence. At the end of the banquet, the Empress said only one thing to me. Ba Shen, you're quite an interesting person. Another day, I would like to invite you into the palace to chat privately. I knew the real show was about to begin. Sure enough, in just a few days, the Empress's decree arrived, summoning me to the palace for an audience. The location was not the solemn and dignified Fengyi Palace, but rather her warm chamber where she lived daily. This was a gesture representing that this conversation was not official business, but a private matter. It also represented that what she wanted to discuss with me was something more profound. I changed into a more low-key green dress, wore no makeup, and entered the palace alone. In the warm chamber, calming sandalwood incense was burning. The Empress had already changed out of her phoenix robe, wearing casual purple palace attire, personally brewing tea. Not a single palace maid or eunuch was attending nearby sit. She pointed to the soft couch opposite. Try my skills. She handed me a cup of tea. The tea was clear with an elegant fragrance. It was top-grade Junshan Yinzhen. This commoner woman is overwhelmed. I stood up to express my thanks. Before me, you need not call yourself a commoner woman, she said indifferently. Just call me Empress. She got straight to the point. Shen Qinging, I admire you very much. You're different from those foolish women in the capital city who only know how to fight over men and get jealous. You have brains, means, and even more so, courage. I didn't respond, just listened quietly. The great Zhou dynasty may seem peaceful and prosperous on the surface, but inside it is already riddled with holes. The Empress put down her teacup, her eyes becoming profound. To the north, the barbarian tribes watch us like tigers eyeing their prey. To the south, floods continue year after year. In the court, factions attack each other. In the national treasury, it grows emptier by the day. His Majesty has long been exhausting himself over these matters, unable to eat or sleep well. My heart stirred, roughly guessing what she wanted to say. I know that your Shen family is wealthy enough to rival a nation. Your trade routes span the entire country, north and south, even reaching overseas. Your intelligence network is even more efficient than the court's postal stations. Your financial power is enough to instantly affect the price of rice, grain, and even stability in any region. She looked at me, her gaze burning. Shen Qingning, you are a double-edged sword. Used well, you can be a weapon for the nation. Used poorly, you can also be the root of disaster. I finally spoke. What does your Majesty want me to do? It is simple. The Empress smiled. That smile for the first time carried a few traces of sincerity. This palace wishes to invite you to become the unnamed goddess of wealth of this great Zhou dynasty. The national treasury is depleted, the canal transport is riddled with entrenched problems. Many matters, when the court steps forward, face resistance at every turn, requiring twice the effort for half the result. But if you were to do it in the capacity of a merchant, there might be miraculous effects. For example, grain for disaster relief. When the court purchases it, 10D layer upon layer of exploitation. If 5 parts out of 10 can reach the disaster victim's hands, it is already a great fortune. But if you were to personally arrange it, this palace believes there would only be more, not less. Another example, the military pay for the northern frontier. When the court allocates it, the journey is long, the loss is enormous. But if you were to use your money houses for remittance, not only could it travel 1,000 ayin a day, but also save a huge amount of expenses. She painted for me a grand blueprint. A blueprint that tightly bound my personal commercial empire together with the fate of the entire nation. This was a huge trap, also a huge pitfall. Once I agreed I would gain unprecedented power and status, I would no longer be an ordinary merchant, I would become a hand behind the scenes. Capable of influencing the court situation, but at the same time, I would also be completely drawn into the whirlpool of politics, scheming with tigers, one misstep, and it would be eternal damnation. What I wanted was clearly just freedom, Your Majesty. I stood up and bowed deeply. This matter is significant. Please allow me to go back and consider it for 3 days. The Empress did not press me. She seemed to have anticipated I would say this all along. Fine, this palace will wait 3 days for you. Shen Qinging, this palace hopes you understand. This is not merely this palace's intention. It is moreover His Majesty's intention. This world in the end is a man's world. You, a woman, possess such immense wealth, yet have no power, no influence, no one to rely on. How long do you think you can remain secure? What you need is a backing stronger than the Duke's manor, stronger than your Shen family. Her words, like a heavy hammer, struck upon my heart. When I walked out of the imperial palace, the sky had already grown somewhat dim. The icy wind blew against my face. I raised my head to look at those towering palace walls. Within the walls, overwhelming power and authority. Beyond the walls, the freedom I yearned for. I Shen Qinging, after leaving that tiny cage that was Peiyanzhou, now had to face an even larger and more splendid cage. This time, how should I choose? I spent a full 3 days shutting myself in Ning Garden's study. Uncle Fu was very worried, but he dared not disturb me. He only quietly had the servants place 3 meals a day at the door, and had the charcoal fire in the room burn even more vigorously. During these 3 days, I thought about many things. I remembered those 5 years married to Peiyanzhou. That was an exquisite cage. I used my own money for him and for myself to build a seemingly glorious prison. I thought that was where I'd belong for the rest of my life, until he brought that child before me and completely shattered that cage. I broke free. I thought I had gained freedom. But the Empress's words were like a needle, puncturing my self-righteous illusion. A woman possessing such enormous wealth, yet without power or influence, without support or backing. How long do you think you can remain safe? How long can I remain safe? I can't. Peiyanzhou has fallen, but in this capital city, there is still the Duke of Ying, still the Duke of Cheng, and countless pairs of eyes eyeing the wealth in my hands with predatory greed. They're not making a move on me now because they've been intimidated by my thunderous methods, and also because the Emperor and Empress have tacitly approved my handling of Peiyanzhou. But how long can this tacit approval last? Once the Emperor's heart changes, or if some prince, some powerful minister, develops other ideas, I and my Shen family are the most succulent piece of meat. Everyone wants to take a bite. When that time comes, who will protect me? My father, who only knows how to weigh pros and cons, or my indecisive older brother. None of them can be relied on. The freedom I want is not living peacefully in a corner, not living hand to mouth. The freedom I want is to be able to stand in this world, rightfully and boldly, and say no to all the people and things I dislike. It is to possess the absolute power to protect myself and those I cherish. The Empress's proposal is another cage, a larger, more luxurious, and more dangerous cage. It is entirely forged from gold and power. If I walk in, I will be tightly bound to the fate of this empire. When one prospers, all prosper. When one suffers, all suffer. But at the same time, it also gives me a pair of wings that can let me fly high enough, so high that everyone can only look up at me. I am dancing with the tiger, but who says I can't become that phoenix fiercer than the tiger? On the morning of the 3rd day, I pushed open the study door. Fubo was standing guard at the entrance, with dark circles under his eyes. Seeing me come out, he let out a long sigh of relief. "Miss Fubo," I smiled at him. Sunlight shone on my face, dispelling all the gloom. "Prepare a carriage for me. I'm going to the palace." Fubo's gaze tightened. "Miss, have you made up your mind?" "I have." My tone was incredibly firm. "Someone wants me to become the goddess of wealth for this great Zhou dynasty? Then I'll do it for her to see. No. What I'll do will be even better than she imagines. I want everyone in this world to know my wealth, Shen Qingying's wealth, can carry the boat and can also capsize it, can strengthen the nation and can also pacify the world. The carriage departed from Ninggarden. I looked at the prosperous capital city outside the window. In my heart there was unprecedented calm. Pei Yanzhou, you thought you cast me down into the dust, but you didn't know you merely threw a seed into the most fertile soil. Now this seed is about to break through the earth and grow into a true towering tree against wind and rain. And you can only hear tales of me from afar in the mud of the southern frontier, never to rise again for all eternity. I saw the Empress again, still in that warm pavilion. She seemed to have known all along that I would come. The tea was already brewed, the incense already lit. It seems you already have your answer, she looked at me. Not a trace of surprise in her eyes. Yes, I didn't beat around the bush. I'm willing to share your Majesty's burden, to share His Majesty's burden. But I have a few conditions. The Empress raised her eyebrows, seeming quite interested in my directness. Let's hear them. First, autonomy. I looked into her eyes, speaking word by word. I will do my best to accomplish what your Majesty asks of me. But I need absolute autonomy. How to allocate funds, how to utilize trade routes, how to arrange manpower. All must be decided by me alone. I'm only responsible for results, not explaining the process. I don't want to hear any meddling from the court in my business. The Empress was silent for a moment, then nodded. Agreed, this is what you deserve, second protection. I continued. Merchant families fear most the government office's harassment and the nobles' oppression. If I work for the court, I will inevitably touch upon many people's interests. I need a talisman that will make everyone think twice before acting rashly. I don't want empty titles or official positions. I only want a handwritten edict from His Majesty or a token representing imperial authority. Whoever sees this token shall regard it as His Majesty's presence. It can ensure the Shen family's trade routes pass unobstructed throughout Great Zhou. It can ensure the Shen family's people are not subject to any official's private punishment or extortion. This is practically asking for the power of the imperial sword. The Empress's gaze finally showed some fluctuation. She looked at me deeply as if trying to see through my inner thoughts. After a long while, she finally spoke slowly. This condition is somewhat excessive, but this palace can petition for a gold medallion for you, engraved with the two characters Imperial Merchant, though it doesn't have the power of the Imperial Sword. It is enough to make officials across the land not dare to disrespect you. Thank you, Your Highness. I didn't push my luck further. I knew this was already the biggest concession she could offer. Third, the convenience of intelligence. The art of war says, know yourself and know your enemy, and you'll win every battle. The marketplace is like a battlefield, even more so. Your Highness wants me to stabilize grain prices and provide disaster relief. I need to know who is hoarding goods to drive up prices, which officials are embezzling disaster relief funds. Though my trade routes are extensive, they're ultimately limited. I need to be able to see the most authentic intelligence submitted by the court's spies. This time, the Empress didn't hesitate. Granted. This palace will establish a dedicated intelligence channel for you. Only you, I, and His Majesty will know of it. I took a deep breath and stated my final and most important condition. Fourth, a path to a peaceful end. When the birds are gone, the good bough is stored away. When the cunning rabbit dies, the hunting dog is cooked. This is a truth unchanged since ancient times. I, Shen Qingying, serve the court not seeking to have my name recorded in history, but only hoping that when the day comes for me to retire after achieving success, I can preserve myself and preserve my family. I hope Your Majesty can give me a promise. In the future, if the realm is at peace, the national treasury is full, and Shen Qingying is no longer needed, you will allow me to remove my armor and return to the fields, to peacefully and steadily be a wealthy man. Having finished speaking, I bowed deeply. This was my greatest fear, and it was also a way out I had to secure for myself, for the entire Shen family. In the warm pavilion, a long silence fell. Only the blue smoke of sandalwood incense rose in curling wisps. The Empress stood up, walked before me, and personally helped me up, Shen Qingying. Her voice carried an unprecedented solemnity. This palace, in the capacity of Empress of Great Zhou, promises you, as long as you remain loyal to Great Zhou, loyal to His Majesty, Great Zhou will forever be your support. There will never be a day when the bough is stored away once the birds are gone. I looked into her eyes. Within them there was appreciation, there was resolve, and even more, there was the weight of 1,000 gold in the promise of one with the dignity of an empress. I believed her. Or rather, I chose to believe. Good, I straightened my body. Then please give your orders, your majesty. What is my first assignment, Shen Qingying's first assignment? The empress laughed with great satisfaction. Your first assignment has already arrived. The Imperial Observatory predicts that this winter the Northern Territories will definitely have a severe snowstorm disaster. It has only just turned autumn, and the grain prices in the 3 northern provinces have already started to skyrocket. The local official granaries are said to have long been depleted. If His Majesty transfers grain from the national treasury, distant water can't quench immediate thirst, and it will also be skimmed off by corrupt officials along the way. I want you within 1 month to stabilize the grain prices in the 3 northern provinces for me. Moreover, make those parasites profiteering from the national disaster spit out everything they've swallowed. Her voice carried a hint of sharp killing intent. I bowed and received the order. Qingying obeys the decree. When I returned from the imperial palace to Ning Garden, it was already evening. I didn't rest and directly had Uncle Fu summon all the core stewards under my name from the Shen family, who were in the capital, 12 people in total, some in charge of banks, some in charge of grain stores, some in charge of fabric shops, and some in charge of north-south cargo transport. They were all veterans who had worked with my father or worked with me for over a decade, loyal and exceptionally capable. In the study, the lamps were brightly lit. I explained the Empress's task concisely and clearly. When they heard it was about stabilizing grain prices in the 3 northern provinces, everyone's expressions became grave. Shopkeeper's son from the grain store, a lean old man in his 50s, was the first to speak. Miss, this matter, I'm afraid it is not easy to handle. The 3 northern provinces have always been the most difficult places for us to do business. That place is filled with powerful clans and families, deeply entrenched and interconnected. Our Shen family's rice business can only be considered small-time there. We have no control over pricing at all. Now they're taking advantage of the snowstorm news, hoarding goods to drive up prices. The grain prices have probably already multiplied several times over. If we transfer grain from the south, the journey is long and the cost would be enormous. Not to mention, once we get there, they only need to unite and boycott us, or use the government office's name to slap us with a charge of disrupting market prices, and they can make us lose everything. Shopkeeper's son's words made perfect sense, every sentence of them. This is also why the court has such a headache every time there is disaster relief. A strong dragon can't suppress the local snakes. Gesturing for him to stay calm. Shopkeeper's son, I understand everything you're saying, so this time we won't play it straight with them. A head-on confrontation is the worst strategy. I want them to obediently sell the grain in their hands at low prices themselves. Everyone was stunned. They thought I was talking nonsense. I walked to the huge map of Great Zhou on the wall, my gaze falling on the location of the 3 northern provinces. If you want the horse to run, you must first cut off its grass. If you want these local snakes to cough up their grain, you must first drain the cash from their hands. I turned around and looked at Shopkeeper Liu from the money house. Shopkeeper Liu, this old servant is here. Starting tomorrow, all Shen family money houses in the 3 northern provinces will suspend all lending. Also, immediately begin collecting all accounts that are about to mature, especially those accounts related to the major local grain merchants and noble families. Remember, your attitude must be firm. Not a single day's extension is allowed. Manager Liu's eyes lit up as if he understood something. Yes, miss? I turned to look at Manager Zhang, who was in charge of fabric shops and various luxury goods businesses. Manager Zhang, this humble one is here. Immediately stop supplying all silk, porcelain, tea leaves, and other luxury goods to the 3 northern provinces. At the same time, spread the word. Say that because the southern waterways are blocked, the prices of these goods will double over the next 6 months. Manager Zhang understood completely and bowed in acknowledgement. Yes, finally. I looked at Steward Zhou, who was in charge of cargo transport. Steward Zhou, this subordinate is here. Immediately organize a fleet and load it full of the most common coarse rice from Jiangnan. Then, with great fanfare, head north along the canal. Stop at every dock and make a big show of it. Make sure everyone knows that the Shen family is transporting 1 million shi of grain north to stabilize grain prices. Steward Zhou was stunned. Miss this, we don't have 1 million shi of grain, and moreover, making such a big show of it. Won't that alert our enemies? I smiled. What I want is exactly to alert the enemy. This is called bluffing. We don't have 1 million shi of grain, but they don't know that. They'll only panic. My gaze swept over everyone. My voice becoming steady and forceful. Everyone. What we need to do now is a 3-pronged attack. Shopkeeper Liu is in charge of draining their money, making their funds tight. Shopkeeper Zhang is in charge of cutting off their goods, so even with money they can't buy anything decent. Manager Zhou is in charge of creating panic, making them feel the grain in their hands is about to become a hot potato. When a person has no money to spend, can't buy what they want, and is afraid the goods in their hands will be stuck there, what will they do? I looked at them. Shopkeeper Sun from the rice shop suddenly slapped his thigh, his face flushed red with excitement. They'll sell the grain in their hands at any cost, turning it into cash. Exactly, I nodded. So, Shopkeeper Sun, your task ahead is the heaviest. You need to prepare enough cash. When they panic sell and grain prices hit rock bottom, I want you to buy up all the grain in their hands down to the last grain, leaving nothing behind. Then, at a fair price, slowly sell it to the people of the north. I want to make sure they not only fail to profit from this national crisis, but also make them lose everything down to their underwear. In the study, complete silence. All the stewards looked at me with eyes filled with something close to worship. They probably never imagined that business could be conducted this way. No flashing blades or swords. Yet every move is lethal. This night, one order after another issued from Ning Garden like an invisible net, rapidly spreading toward the 3 northern states, 1,000 miles away, enveloping them. A war without gunpowder smoke began. The 3 northern states, Yun Province City as the most prosperous city in the northern lands. Winter here always arrives earlier than elsewhere. With the first autumn winds, Wang Delong, head of the Wang family, the city's largest grain merchant and Yun Province's foremost clan, had already lit silver bone charcoal in his heated pavilion. He was leisurely savoring new tea, listening to his butler report on grain prices at various rice shops throughout the city. Master, the rice price at the Lai family's shop in the east of the city has risen by another 10% today. The Zhao family in the west has followed suit. Now even the cheapest brown rice in the city is selling for 80 yuan per due. Compared to last year, it is quadrupled. Wang Delong nodded with satisfaction, twirling his well-maintained goatee. Very good. Tell them to keep in step. The message from the Imperial Astronomy Bureau won't be wrong. There will definitely be heavy snow this winter. When that time comes, grain prices rising tenfold isn't impossible. The butler smiled obsequiously. Master is wise. However, there have been some rumors in the city recently. They say the Shen family from the capital city wants to get involved in the northern grain business. Wang Delong sneered at those words, his face full of disdain. Shen family, a merchant family propped up by a woman. And they dare to run wild on my northern territory? Does she think the capital city is her backyard? A strong dragon doesn't suppress the local snake. And besides, what kind of dragon does that Shen Qingying think she is? He didn't take this news to heart at all. In his view, no matter how rich the Shen family was, once in Yunzhou, they'd have to behave themselves. The rules of this land were set by him, Wang Delong. However, his confidence didn't last very long. 3 days later, the first bad news arrived. Master, this is terrible. The steward rushed in frantically. The Shen family's Four Seas money house in Yunzhou suddenly announced they're suspending all lending. And they sent people to our door to collect the 3 loans we borrowed before, saying tomorrow is the final deadline. And if we don't repay by then, they'll take the IOS to the authorities. Wang Delong's brow furrowed. Collection? Have they gone mad? Don't they know what kind of family the Wang family is? To hoard grain, the Wang family had put up almost all their cash and borrowed quite a bit from various money houses. Four Seas Money House was the largest among them. Go, tell their money house's manager, tell him to give us a 3-month extension. Say this is Wang Delong's word. He thought that with his influence, this small matter would be a piece of cake. But what the butler brought back was the ice-cold reply from the manager of Sihai Bank. This is a death order personally issued by the owner. We won't give face to anyone. Wang Delong's complexion turned ugly for the first time. He began to realize that things might not be as simple as he thought. Immediately after, the second piece of bad news came one after another. His wife rushed into the study, her face full of anxiety. "Master, what on earth is going on? All the Jingxiu pavilions and Zhenbao houses in the city have closed their doors. I sent people to ask, and they said the goods from the south can't be transported here anymore. Next month is Minister Zhang's daughter's coming-of-age ceremony, and I was planning to get a new outfit made. What should I do now?" Wang Delong was stunned. Jingxiu Pavilion and Zhenbao House weren't those all properties of the Shen family. Not only was she draining his money, but she was also cutting off his prestige. He began to feel uneasy. This woman's methods seemed quite different from those of the opponents he had encountered before, and the last straw that broke the camel's back appeared on the 5th day. A shocking piece of news, as if it had grown wings, flew throughout every street and alley of Yunzhou City. "Have you heard? The Shen family has transported 1,000,000 dan of grain from Zhongnan, traveling north along the canal, and will arrive in Yunzhou any day now. Is it real or fake, 1,000,000 dan? Absolutely true. That fleet is so vast and mighty, it is nearly blocking the canal. I heard that Ba Shen has said she'll bring the grain price in Yunzhou back down to 20 yuan per due." As soon as the news broke, the entire city was in an uproar. Those common folk who were still hesitating about whether to buy rice all stopped in their tracks, choosing to wait. And those small grain merchants who had followed the trend to hoard grain completely panicked. 1,000,000 shy of grain. That was enough to smash the grain prices of the entire Yunzhou through the earth's core. If they didn't sell off now, the grain in their hands would really turn into piles of moldy garbage. Wang Delong's warm pavilion was packed with representatives from major grain merchants and aristocratic families of the 3 northern provinces. Every person's face was written all over with panic and anxiety. "Brother Wang, what are we going to do about this? That Shen Qinging is trying to cut off our livelihood. That is right, Brother Wang. All our liquid cash is tied up in grain, and the banks are pressing for debt repayment. This, if grain prices really drop, we'll all have to jump off buildings. How about we just lower the price and sell? Recover whatever we can." The warm pavilion turned into complete chaos. Wang Delong's face was dark, saying nothing. In his heart there were equally raging storms. He couldn't figure it out. Where did Shen Qinging, a woman, get such courage? Where did she get such resources? She was declaring war on all the aristocratic families of the northern lands. "All of you, shut up." He suddenly slapped the table and roared in anger. Everyone instantly fell silent. Wang Delong took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. "Why panic? The art of war says, when empty, make it seem full, when full, make it seem empty." She says there is 1,000,000 dan, so there really is 1,000,000 dan. Transporting grain from Zhongnan, how difficult that is. How could a mere merchant family have such great capability? I think this is just her trick. She is trying to scare us. Make us panic and sell at low prices. As long as we hold steady, don't lower prices, don't sell off. Even if that bit of grain she has gets transported here, it'll just be a drop in the bucket. When the time comes, we'll still be the ones who set the rules for grain prices. His words were like a shot of adrenaline settling down the people present somewhat. But, Brother Wang, the money house. The money house, I'll find a way, Wang Delong said decisively. If 4C's money house won't lend, there are other money houses. I don't believe that in this Yunzhou city Wang Delong would be stumped by money. He forcibly steadied the morale. After sending everyone away, he sat alone in the chair, dejected. Fine beads of cold sweat had already seeped out on his forehead. He talked tough, but in his heart, for the first time, a trace of ominous premonition arose. This woman called Shen Qinging, it seemed she really wasn't joking. Wang Delong's premonition quickly became reality. He thought he could easily borrow money from other money houses in Yunzhou City. But the steward he sent out ran all over the city, and what he brought back was the same result every time. "Master, the manager of Daewon Money House says they're also tight on funds lately and really can't help. The prosperous money houses simply shut their doors and refuse to see us. Even Futong Money House, which usually has the best relationship with us, only vaguely said that they need to consider it further." Wang Delong kicked over the chair beside him. A bunch of opportunistic bastards, he cursed out loud. How could he not understand? These people, it is not that they don't have money, they were scared off by the Shen family's move. Sihai Money House is the leading money house in all of Great Zhou. If even they refuse to lend money to the Wang family, who would dare to stick their neck out, this is pulling the firewood from under the cauldron. Shen Qingying's move directly hit Wang Delong's vital point. The capital chain was broken. Without money, he couldn't continue buying grain or maintain the high prices. He couldn't even repay the enormous debts he owed before. At the same time, the cut-off of luxury goods also began to ferment. At first, it was just women complaining a bit. But soon, the men also noticed something was wrong. The top-grade Dahong Pao they usually drank was gone. The famous Huizhou ink they used to appear cultured was gone. Even the precious items from the western regions they used to bribe their superiors were all out of stock. The material life of the entire upper-class society in the 3 northern states seemed to have regressed 10 years overnight. This was even more unbearable than killing them. An invisible anxiety and panic spread among these aristocratic families and great clans, and that so-called million-stone fleet became a massive boulder weighing heavier and heavier on their hearts. The fleet moved very slowly, but at every major port along the waterway, it would stop. The Shen family's workers would set up porridge stands at the docks to distribute porridge to the local poor people. They would also take out small amounts of rice to sell at an extremely low price, with limited quantities. That price was only 1/3 of what it was in Cloud State City. As word spread, all the people in the northern lands were stirred up. They rushed to tell each other, all saying that a Shen Bodhisattva had come from the capital city to save them from their suffering. The people's hearts began to turn toward Shen Qingying. This also put tremendous pressure on the government offices in various regions. They kept receiving complaints, all accusing local grain merchants of maliciously inflating prices and disregarding people's livelihoods. Inside Cloud State City, the atmosphere at the second clan meeting convened by Wang Delong was already completely different from the first. Panic had replaced the previous arrogance. Brother Wang, we can't wait any longer. If we keep waiting, we'll all be drowned by the people's spit. That is right. I heard that some small grain merchants, unable to withstand the pressure, have already started secretly lowering prices to sell their goods. Our alliance is about to collapse. Wang Delong's face was so gloomy it could drip water. How could he not know that the situation had reached a precarious point? But he just wasn't willing to accept it. He didn't believe he would lose to a woman far away in the capital city. Whoever dares to secretly lower prices, I, Wang Delong, will be the first to not let them off. He slammed the table, attempting to use threats to maintain this already crumbling alliance. Just at this moment, capital city Ning Garden, I was listening to the intelligence Fubo had sent back from various fronts. Miss, the 3 northern states, just as you predicted, have become a boiling pot. Our money houses have successfully recovered 70% of the accounts, forcing their capital chains to the brink of collapse. Our shops, after cutting off supply, have also caused widespread complaints within their ranks. Our fleet has become the final straw that crushed their confidence. According to reports from our people planted inside, their alliance exists in name only. Many are secretly contacting our people, wanting to sell their goods. I nodded. Everything was under control. How are the preparations on Shopkeeper Sun's end? Reporting to Miss. Shopkeeper Sun has already taken sufficient banknotes and is awaiting orders at a manor outside Yun City. Just waiting for your command and we can begin closing the net. I looked at the fleet slowly moving north on the topographic map. The timing was about right, but one final fatal strike was still needed. At this time, a guard walked in, presenting a secret letter without any markings. It was delivered by the Empress's people. I opened the letter. Inside, there was only a thin sheet of paper. On the paper, rows and rows of names were densely written, all officials from the 3 northern states, from the prefects down to the county magistrates and registrars. Behind each name, detailed notes were made of how much dirty money they received from the Wang family and others, and how many evil deeds they helped them commit. This was sent by the Empress, a convenience of intelligence. It was also a guillotine that could completely nail Wang Delong and the others to death. I handed that list to Uncle Foos. Send it to Shopkeeper Sun immediately using the fastest carrier pigeon. Tell him it is time to close the net. Not only must we take their grain, but also all the fish in this net, catch every single one of them for me, leaving none behind." Uncle Fu took the list, his eyes gleaming with excitement. He knew that this war without gunpowder smoke was about to end with a thoroughly satisfying great victory. Outside Cloud Province City, after shopkeeper Sun received my orders, and that list, a fox-like smile appeared on his aged face. He bowed deeply in the direction of the capital city. "Miss, your military tactics are godlike. This old servant admires you with utmost respect." He turned around and gave orders to the clerks beside him. "Pass down the order. Starting tomorrow, lower the price for buying grain. At the same time, take this list and make a trip to the Salt Censor's traveling headquarters. Tell them that there is a major case in Cloud Province, and request His Excellency the Censor to serve justice for the people." The next day, the sky over Cloud Province City changed overnight. The grain prices at all rice shops in the city began to plummet like an avalanche. From 80 wen per due, it dropped to 60 wen. Then from 60 wen, it dropped to 40 wen. By afternoon, the price had already dropped below 30 wen. Those small grain merchants who had followed the trend completely collapsed. They cried and screamed, scrambling over each other to dump the burning hot grain in their hands, fearing that one step later they would lose everything down to their last penny. Wang Delong sat in his mansion, listening to the steward continuously reporting the prices. His face had already lost all color. He had lost utterly and completely. The price barrier he had carefully constructed crumbled to pieces under Shen Qingning's feints and real strikes. "Master, we should sell too," the steward urged in a trembling voice. "If we don't sell now, it is really going to rot in the warehouse." Wang Delong closed his eyes, the strength in his entire body seemingly drained completely. He squeezed out a single word through clenched teeth. Sell, however, just as the Wang family's convoy, carrying the first batch of grain, was about to go dump it at the market. The second strike, and also the most fatal one, came down. Waves of bailiffs wearing official robes with cold expressions suddenly blockaded all the Wang family's exits. Leading them was not the Yunzhou prefect, but an unfamiliar middle-aged man wearing the robes of a censorate official. He was none other than the Salt Patrol Censor sent by the Emperor to the Northern Territories to inspect salt affairs. Chen Jingqin, an iron-faced judge famous throughout the court and country for being upright and impartial, recognizing neither relatives nor friends. By the Emperor's decree, thoroughly investigate the case of northern grain merchants colluding with officials and disrupting the people's livelihood. "Wang Delong, do you know your crime?" Chen Jingqin's voice was like cold ice. Wang Delong looked at the copy of his bribery ledger in his hand, submitted by shopkeeper Sun. His whole body felt as if struck by lightning. He couldn't figure out how something he'd done so secretly could have been leaked. He was done for. He knew he was completely done for. The bailiffs rushed into the Wang family residence. They sealed all the ledgers and confiscated all the family property. Wang Delong, along with all the core members of the Wang family, were all shackled and thrown into prison. At the same time, within Yunzhou City, a major political earthquake also began, from the Yunzhou prefect down to the county magistrates and registrars below. Every official whose name appeared on that list, not one escaped. All were taken directly from the government office by the Salt Patrol Censor's men, the interest group formed by aristocratic families and nobles that had operated in the 3 northern provinces for over 100 years. On this day, I uprooted them entirely from 1,000 miles away. When the news spread, the entire north was shaken. Those grain merchants who were still watching and waiting were scared out of their wits. They ran overnight to the entrance of Chen Jingqin's temporary office, carrying their own ledgers in silver, kneeling to confess their crimes. They voluntarily donated the grain they had hoarded to the government office at an extremely low price, only seeking to avoid imprisonment. Thus, the grain crisis in the north was completely resolved in a way no one had anticipated. The government office's granaries became abundant overnight, and Manager Sun, whom I dispatched, purchased a massive amount of grain from those small grain merchants at extremely low prices. Not only was it enough to stabilize the market when the snowstorm hit, it even earned me enormous profits. I won this battle with my pockets overflowing. I gained both reputation and made plenty of silver. and even helped the court eliminate a major threat along the way. Ninggarden, listening to Uncle Fu's excited report, my face maintained a calm smile throughout. Miss, you're simply divine. This battle was fought so beautifully. Now all the common folk in the northern lands worship you like a living bodhisattva. I shook my head. I'm not a bodhisattva. I'm just a merchant who always repays grudges. I looked toward the window, capital city's autumn. The sky was high and clouds were thin. Just then, a messenger pigeon landed on the windowsill. Uncle Fu removed the message tube and handed it to me. Inside was still a small slip of paper without any markings. On it were still 2 characters. It was from the Empress. Very good. I held the note over the candlelight, quietly watching it turn to ash. My first assignment was complete. I knew this was only the beginning. That magnificent gilded cage has already opened its doors for me. The path ahead will I become the true goddess of wealth behind this empire, or become an innocent sacrifice in the power struggle. It remains unknown, but I, Shen Qinging, am already prepared to face any and all challenges, because my life from this day forward will be decided by me alone. Dowry refers to the property a woman brings from her natal family to her husband's family when she marries, including fields, real estate, shops, gold, silver, and valuables. In ancient times, the dowry belonged to the woman personally and was protected by law. Her husband had no right to dispose of it at will. The dowries of wealthy families were often staggering in amount, serving both as the natal family's dignity and as the daughter's confidence and security in her in-law's household. So you see, everyone, whether ancient or modern times, financial independence has always been a woman's greatest confidence. Money makes the world go round, and it can also make scumbag men kneel and beg for mercy.